I have no problem with the idea of comfort, but it is not an important thing aesthetically. If you look at a shoe and immediately say it looks very comfortable, in terms of design, it is not going to excite me. Of course, I am not putting nails in my shoes to ensure everybody is in pain, but a heel is not a pair of slippers and never will be. Of course, eating broccoli raw, nutritionally and aesthetically speaking, is no doubt the best way of all. Raw broccoli makes a delectable salad when sliced into thin strips on a mandolin, marinated in lemon mustard vinaigrette, then tossed with toasted pecans or hazelnuts, halved cherry tomatoes, and fresh minced basil. Women do so much aesthetically to attract men that they sometimes overlook the simple things, like cooking. Clothing creates the illusion that bodies fit an aesthetically pleasing norm, and that illusion depends on getting the fit right. Garments that bunch, pull, or sag call attention to figure flaws and often make people look worse than they would without clothes. The point is to expand the scope of what a movie can possibly mean or be, to get people involved because they're artistic or understand the point of the material, not just because they fit a certain bill aesthetically. My type, which I didn't realize until somebody pointed out to me, apparently is brunettes with darker skin tones, but that is about it as far as aesthetically. Having good style really just means having a decisive eye and being able to put things together in an aesthetically pleasing manner. It's not a matter of spending a lot of money and throwing it all together. I am getting even better with age aesthetically. The Church of Satan was something, aesthetically, that we were always really fascinated with and wanted to emulate. I think it's a good look. Aesthetically, we were enormously successful. Economically, there was no success. It was all about music of the future, and unfortunately it was a band that didn't have any future. B-52s are one of the most unique bands, not just sonically but aesthetically, too. When you look at them, you know it's the B-52s. There's been a lot of aesthetically rich horror films that have come out in the last several years. The Babadook is this perfectly paced, beautiful film. The Witch is a beautifully made film. Get Out is so intelligently written. I feel like there's so many great things happening right now. My constant goal is to create clothing that applies to the lifestyle of my customers. My clothing must be aesthetically pleasing in color, texture, and construction. Rapid changes are a part of fashion, and the demands of the industry are that I remain fluid and versatile. But my aesthetic requirements will always be the same. For so many years of my career, I was the big show. So in the back of my mind, whether it was fat or aesthetically not pleasing or whatever crap people want to sling around, I enjoyed being the big show. I enjoyed being 450 pounds. I've always been very into interior design, and I can't stand to have anything in my apartment that I don't aesthetically love. People define themselves aesthetically at a very young age. After you have kids, you feel differently about your body. Aesthetically, am I happy with my body? No. I definitely think you come to view it as more functional, but you just get past it. CSI was a little cutting edge at the time because it made TV look like movies. It was shot in that Jerry Bruckheimer style with dolly shots, putting the camera on rails so stylistically, it looked aesthetically more like a film. Examine each question in terms of what is ethically and aesthetically right, as well as what is economically expedient. One must be aesthetically long-termist in selecting a man. It's like purchasing a farmhouse in the south of France. Sure, it's beautiful to look at, but will the roof stay on? Before vampires were aesthetically appealing, they were physical anomalies and ostracized outsiders whom we banished to the dark, and they didn't have the appeal that they do now. The writer must face the fact that ordinary lives are what most people live most of the time, and that the novel as a narration of the fantastic and the adventurous is really an escapist plot, that aesthetically, the ordinary, the banal, is what you must deal with. I just looked like there was only one thing I could do, be in a band. It looked like I was already successful, basically, which is what I wanted to do when I was 16. I just felt like if you did that, aesthetically you would just draw people who were doing the same thing. I will always come with something that's aesthetically pleasing. It's a wonderful side effect of what we're doing, to give someone the strength to come out of the closet to their family, or simply present themselves aesthetically in a way they feel happy with, whether or not their friends are going to be allowed to like them anymore. Often, I feel like a cheap imitation aesthetically looks better to me than the real, out-of-reach thing. It's amazing that brands create a whole illusion of exclusivity and luxury, and then you can go get the $5 version of a $30,000 thing and feel the same way but have a cool little secret. I love a nice cooking show. It's as aesthetically pleasing as any other thing that tempts the senses, I suppose. Aesthetically, London is just beautiful. It's a gorgeous city. The architecture, monuments, the parks, the small streets, it's an incredible place to be. I like women who look like women. I hated grunge. No one's more feminist than me, but you don't have to look as if you don't give a, you know. You can be smart, bright, and attractive aesthetically to others, and to yourself. You've got to be honest with yourself aesthetically about who could you play. You want to artistically be true to that character. I'm not a politically radical person. In fact, I'm much more interested in being radical aesthetically. The thing is that any sophistication I have, aesthetically, comes from Vogue and Harper's Bazaar. In the 60s, I never missed an issue, even if I had to steal to get them. But if you look at Victoria's Secret models, honestly, young girls don't necessarily look up to them for the healthiest reasons. It's more about the envy, the desire to look aesthetically best. It's an unattainable, elitist mindset. We live in a youth-obsessed, aesthetically obsessed culture. That is no more evident than in the film industry. I think, aesthetically, I've always been drawn to packaging and products, combs and blow-dryers, all that. Chemistry is so important and so unpredictable. Sometimes you get in a room with someone where aesthetically you make perfect sense as a couple, and then you read, and you're both kind of sitting there like, this isn't working for some strange reason, it just doesn't really pop. Format is just the language. Content is the only thing that is important. Form is like handwriting. Whether you write in a scribble or clean handwriting or type it, the content remains the same. You want to write in clean hand, in a kind of a clear format only because it is aesthetically pleasing. I can scribble, that's also fine. A comic can be aesthetically beautiful. I think they captured it beautifully and accurately. The idea of taking a brand that already exists and making a really poor-looking version of it, with acrylic or puffy paint, is really aesthetically pleasing to my eyes and also funny. It's so easy to call something a Jewish story or a gay story or a woman's story. Aesthetically, if a story is not universal, it has failed. Your obligation is to the story. One rule creatively, and emotionally, is its universality. I don't think gender is aesthetically defining for me. Poetry privileges music and is aesthetically more challenging. Prose privileges information and is emotionally more challenging. Beauty is a combination of qualities. I don't think one can deny that certain people or things feel aesthetically pleasing, but without an equally pleasing being behind that form, there is no beauty there. Well, I was raised in the South, so it's like Bible Belt vibes. I went to Catholic school, so I had a male uniform my whole life. I always had very specific gender roles with hair and makeup and nails. Every single little aspect of me was gendered and then I was told aesthetically what was allowed per my gender. Aesthetically, I don't really like the blonde, tan thing. I am pale, so I may as well embrace the pale. Long, blonde hair and a bad spray tan is the stuff of my nightmares. There's so much judgment geared toward young girls. People just expect so much from girls. Even physically and aesthetically, people expect us to always look right, to have a certain etiquette, to talk a certain way and act a certain way, and to know certain things. It's all different expectations, but there are always expectations. I try to keep my closet organized by color and category so that it's not only aesthetically pleasing but practical as well. It really makes getting ready so much easier. I like silence. Aesthetically, I feel strangled by the fast cutting and a wall of sound. And I think showing black people thinking on screen is radical. There are usually 3 sections of people who like my work. There are those who like them aesthetically. They see beauty in the images. Second, there are those who like the horror aspect, which is by design, and I like that. Third, there are those who are moved by the historical or political nature of them. They want to talk about them. I have no sense of a model or predecessor when I write a memoir. For me, the form exists as a method of processing material that retains too many connections to life to be approached strictly and aesthetically. A memoir is a risk, a one-off, a bastard child. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.